Hi, what's good, everybody? This is Andrew Barber. I'm here with DJ Drama, the legendary DJ Drama. And today I just wanted to sit down with him and talk about his legendary Gangsta Grillz series. I think it's one of the most, important moments of, uh, you know, hip hop history as far as it really bridged like the old music world and then the new one. Like it was like between the blog era, ushered in the blog era, and then continued on through that. And you've obviously been able to have a very prosperous career ever since. So, man, thank you for everything.
Thanks for having me, man. Good looking.
Yeah. So really, man, I just want to. How did you even come up with the concept for Gangsta Grillz? Period.
Funny story. Like, you know, I guess back in my college days, I used to make a bunch of mixtapes, and I had various series, and I used to kind of hustle them myself, so I kind of would always make sure that I had a bit of everything for everybody. So like, because I would pretty much like set up my own stand on, college campuses, including my college, which is Clark Atlanta University, Georgia State, Spelman, all over. So I would like, when I would have my stand, I would make sure I would have like, a hip hop CD, which was basically like more, East Coast, up north driven. I would have like a reggae CD. I had this neo soul series called Automatic Relaxation that was like really popular with my fan base in those years. And then, obviously being in the South, I had to have, a South CD. So the first South CD I ever made was, I think it was called like Jim Crow Laws or something. And this was probably like 98, 99. It was around the time when like Cash Money had just came out, because I remember one of the first songs on there was like was Bling Bling. And it just took off like hotcakes when I was on campus. Like I was selling them like crazy and everything. And obviously being in the South, it was kind of a no-brainer. So I made a couple more Southern CDs after that. Me and my man DJ Sense, Trendsetter Sense, who I came up with when I was in school and everything. We did one together. I think it was called How the South Was Won. So a couple years later, after I was out of school and I was still hustling my mixtapes, a Sense was interning at Hot 107.9, or it was Hot 97 at the time. And Empress Cersei, who was like the midday afternoon DJ, who also is part of owner of BME Click with Little John, who put out John's records, Scrappy, Trillville, a bunch of stuff. He offered us the opportunity to have a stand at the Birthday Bash, which is the biggest,
Right.
concert in the city and everything. So he was like, listen, I'm gonna invest with you guys to do a stand, and so forth. So I was like, okay, cool. This is a great opportunity. I have to come up with a new South tape at the time because I didn't really have one. And I was just in my crib. I remember just like kind of like playing with names and, just being creative. And, I thought of the word, like I was just running. I remember just running off of my head like, Gangsta Grillz. And Sense was like, yeah, that sounds cool. Like I was like, all right, cool. So the first Gangsta Grillz act we made just specifically for that moment, and it's spelled like with a S, like Gangsta Grillz, GRILLS, and the cover is like terrible. It was like,
Is it online anywhere?
You said what?
You find it online anywhere?
I'm sure I probably can. I have to like look for it. I haven't seen it in forever, but the cover was terrible. And then the tape, at this time, Gangsta Grillz, when in its original form, was just still like a compilation of like, the hottest songs that were out. And it really didn't even have any like, it didn't have any no direction at the time. Cause I remember like I had put like Eric Sermon, just like music on the tape. That song had just been so hot, so I put it on the tape. So fast forward, we went to Birthday Bash to kind of like have our table set up, and we basically got blown out by like Big Oomp, and like at the time like Jelly, Monte, Big Oomp Camp were like when it came to mixtapes in Atlanta, them niggas was like killing everything. So I remember like just even sound systems, like they just blew us out. You know what I'm saying? Oh shit. Are you still there? Hold on.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, my bad. And yeah, so that was pretty much how Gangsta Grillz was born. And then, you know, around this time I was still kind of like, again, going to various colleges and setting my table up and, you know, hustling CDs. So I made like Gangsta Grillz 2, which again was another compilation of kind of like, you know, the hottest songs out. So long story short, around this time was when a lot of the hosting part of mixtapes came into play, you know, and, you know, I was always, you know, me being from Philly, I was always kind of like looking towards or looking at what people were doing on the East Coast more than anywhere else when it came to mixtapes. So everybody had a lot of hosts, you know, like Nas was hosting a tape, or, you know, like SNS or Clue would have Puff host a tape. And so I was like, okay, well, I need to kind of follow in that lead, you know what I'm saying? So I need to try to find a host for Gangsta Grillz. I had asked a couple people who turned me down, and I came upon Little John, who I knew from, you know, just kind of moving around the city, and since being at Hot 107.9, I was like, yo, can you host the tape for me? He was like, yeah, no problem, I got you. So he came to my little duplex. You know, I had this little duplex in the Fourth Ward, and hence that was the first host for Gangsta Grillz. Now at the time, I think I told him, like when I was recording him, to do Gangsta Grillz 4. I must have just had a brain fart because I forgot I never had did a 3. So there's no Gangsta Grillz 3. It was only Gangsta Grillz 4. And when he came, you know, he did all the drops, and, you know, hence the voice that you hear on Gangsta Grillz, like the drop is Little John's voice. So that tape kind of did good. And then the next one, Gangsta Grillz 5, everybody kept asking me, like, who are you going to have those? Who are you going to have those? And I didn't really have anybody to host it. So I just took Little John's voice and just like put it all over the next tape. And that's how like the drop of Gangsta Grillz became what it was, because, you know, it was, you know, his voice was iconic at the time. I didn't have anybody to host the next tape, and I just, you know, ran with it. And I was always like, in those days, I was always very conscious of like brands, you know what I mean? And like,
Right.
and building something. Like you know, my goal, I remember early on, was like to make Gangsta Grillz a brand more than DJ Drama, you know what I'm saying? For the reasons of, you know, how important mixtapes were. And I always like took pride in the covers and, you know, just packaging and everything. And at the time, that wasn't a really big thing in Atlanta. Like people were just kind of putting out mixtapes, and, you know, it would have song lists and whatnot. And you know, and I was again, like I was paying attention to what people were doing on the East Coast. So just a little bit more just to like kind of get where we were. So one of the things too was when I was kind of moving like mixtapes and everything, like I remember one of the main stores that I would sell the mixtapes, and they told me, like, listen, when you do a tape for the South, like, don't, you know, they don't really want to hear a lot of talking, and, you know, they don't want to hear new music and freestyles. That's not what they're into. Like, they just want to hear the hit songs and just play the music. And I kind of like totally went against the grain and went against that formula. And
Right.
like I started to get on the tapes and was talking shit, and, you know, I was getting freestyles, and, you know, like early on I met T.I. like as soon as I had got out of school, and, you know, he kind of got his deal, so he was coming to the crib doing freestyles. Killer Mike was coming, like David Banner, Bone Crusher. So I was getting all these up and coming artists from Atlanta who were, you know, I always felt like when it came to the South around those days, the South didn't really get its credit when it came to lyricism. You know, it was like,
Right at
you know,
that time.
obviously we were in the crunk era, you know what I'm saying? There was a lot of like, you know, Bankhead Bounce and, you know, things. And it was like, you know, here I was in the epicenter with people like Outkast and T.I. and Killer Mike. And so I really wanted to focus and showcase, you know, the lyricism and just like the, you know, the artistry of what I considered, you know, Southern hip hop. And then, so I did a couple more tapes. I got to like Gangsta Grillz 8 or what have you. And Jason Jeter, who was, partners and manager of T.I., who we had already kind of established a relationship and was kind of coming up, called me one day and was like, yo, listen, Gangsta Grillz is moving. I got this idea. Let's do like a whole tape of just T.I. and Grand Hustle. You know what I'm saying? Like a special edition of Gangsta Grillz. And I was like, bet, you know what I'm saying? Because at the time, this is like post 50 Cent era and Dipset, and mixtapes changed from compilations and just freestyles to like basically mini demo tapes. You know what I'm saying? And obviously what Fifth was doing and Who Kid and Green Lantern, I was just mesmerized by all those guys. They were like gods to me. So when Jason came to me with that concept, it was the perfect opportunity for me to kind of like make the project that I had been wanting to make. And T.I. was really like kind of on the come up. This was like right around 24 is when he lost his deal at Arista, and he was just getting signed to Atlantic. And he in Atlanta, he was like, the buzz was there. Like, Dope Boys in the Trap was a big record, and Tip was like, he was becoming that nigga at the time. So we did the tape. It was called T.I. and PSC meets Gangsta Grillz. And that was the first Gangsta Grillz that was pretty much like a street album. Like you couldn't find none of that music anywhere except for that project. And, it took off, and it was like, okay, now, hence here was, now Gangsta Grillz went from just a compilation of the best songs to like its own brand and its own like pretty much street album. And, that was the first one. So when people talk about like, who kind of made me or made Gangsta Grillz, or where did the rise come from, regardless, before we can say Chains and Meek and Fab and Wayne and Jeezy, I always have to give credit to Tip and Grand Hustle, because that was where the concept of the Gangsta Grillz as a street album was born.
Because that's the first one I remember seeing, and I remember like I'm pretty sure they even sold that in like Best Buy. I remember seeing those in stores up north. Like you could get those in store. Like that was when I first started like seeing hard copies of your projects like moving around up north.
Yeah, they started putting them in. They started putting barcodes on them.
How were you able to move those around at the time? Like, did you have a distributor, or were you like going to the store and doing drop offs like yourself?
So basically, I started local. I started, just kind of like moving them around the stores in Atlanta. Earwax, Tape Masters, Audrey's, Peppermint, you know what I'm saying? So I basically like, created a Rolodex of local distributors in Atlanta. And there were a couple people like who kind of would move numerous units, like a couple hundred at a time. Shout out my man Rico Brooks. He used to buy like box like 200 at a time and things of that nature. And I also had a homeboy who was a DJ. I don't know where he is now, but his name was D Mello, and he gave me his store list very early on, and it was just like it was a store list that he had kind of accumulated over time. And I pretty much used to like run down through the store list and like, I was doing everything myself, man. For real, like
burning the CD.
I was going to Kinko's, printing them up. I used to, before Kinko's had a certain system with cards and everything, I used to rape the shit out of them and like just like print all my own covers and get my CDs duplicated. I was at the crib putting them together, making phone calls and doing all types of stuff. And I used to call stores and be like, yo, listen, I have this new South mixtape, it's called Gangsta Grillz. I wanted to, get them to your store. And people used to be like, South CDs don't really sell. Like, we're not really into that, you know what I'm saying? Especially like outside of the South. And then, well, particularly outside of the South. In the South, they would move. But when I would call like East Coast stores and other areas, and then I I would be like, okay, cool. Let me just send you a box. You know, take them. It's on me. Take them in the store, and then let me know. And I would get phone calls back like, yo, them CDs did good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we want send us 10 more. And then I would also like I would travel around. Like I used to come to New York all the time and go to Canal Street and just give out CDs and, you know, in those days, and just like really just kind of I was my own marketer. Like I would go to all the flea markets and drop them off. I remember one time, this was like probably, this was still before even like the T.I. Gangsta Grillz, like I was on Gangsta Grillz 6 or whatever, and I stumbled upon like a huge like African bootleg center. And I went, this was like right around when 50 Get Rich or Die Trying came out, and me and my homies, we went into the center, like where they had like, it was just all types of bootleggers in there, and they had all types of stuff.
So
And
it's
I
like a
saw,
warehouse. It's like a
it
warehouse.
was like a
All
warehouse
the
with all
equipment.
types of shit, everything, like shoes, bags, CDs, they had everything. And I saw this wall of Gangsta Grill bootlegs, and they had like, I probably saw like 10,000 of my CDs up there. And I was so excited to see that, because I felt like, oh shit, I made it. Like these niggas is bootlegging me, like I'm here, you know what I'm saying? And you know, at the time they probably was making way more money than I was making off my own shit, you know what I mean? Because I wasn't moving the type of units they was moving. But, you know, as a DJ in those days, for someone like myself, that was a sign of success, because, you know, if I was getting bootleg to that degree, that means, you know, I was in demand and people wanted the product. So, you know, again, Gangsta Grillz was its own brand in the sense where people didn't even know what I looked like or who I was, you know. Like I remember early on, you know, the first time people ever saw me was in the Jeezy Trap or Die DVD, because, you know, people
You were
like,
in the
yo,
you were in the 24's video though. I remember that.
I wasn't in 24's video, but I don't think people made the correlation like that's the
Mm.
guy from
Yeah.
Gangsta Grillz, that's DJ
Right.
Drama. Like at the time, looking back on it, you're like, oh my god, look at Drama, he's young as shit. But because people used to think I was like, people used to think I was really fat and dark skinned, you know, just because of how my voice sounds on the tapes, or you know how boisterous it was.
Was it good to have
But
that?
yeah, but that's pretty much.
Was it good to be
Go ahead.
anonymous at that point? Like in the mixtape game, was it better to have that kind of anonymous presence, or was that bad for branding?
No, I mean, I don't know if it was good. I mean, you know, like, you know, I grew up in an era where, you know, I was a fan of Clue and Green and Who Kid and SNS and Doo-Wop, and, you know, so like I didn't plan on being anonymous, but again, I knew like my goal at those times was, before, you know, I kind of knew that, all right, if I can get Gangsta Grillz popping, then I can kind of like use that as a platform for myself to come up. But my goal before my, like making myself famous, was like, if somebody went into a store and they looked up on the, you know, of the new CDs that was out at the time, you know, they're still in mom and pop stores at the time, and they saw the new Gangsta Grillz. My goal was that they wouldn't have to look at the playlist or look at a sheet of paper to see what was on it. They would just go into the store and be like, oh, the new Gangsta Grillz is out, let me get that. You know what I'm saying? And I accomplished it. But, you know, early on, that was my agenda. Like, I don't want anybody to have to like look and see what's on that shit. If they see the name Gangsta Grillz, they're gonna want to buy it.
Right. They're gonna blindly buy it like it was a No Limit CD. Like the brand was
100%.
that strong.
Absolutely.
So when did you know? Was it the moment when you saw the bootlegs, or was there a specific tape when you knew that, like, all right, I made it, and this is real. Like this is like a real thing, and like your phone's now ringing off the hook. Like what was that moment?
I had a couple of moments like that. Obviously, seeing the bootleggers, like you know, that was definitely like a moment of excitement and success. I don't know if I felt like I had made it. Bun B called me. I wound up doing a project Against Girls with him, and then we did. I did okay. So then after that, you know, my neighbor from that lived around the corner from me was this gentleman by the name of Coach K.
Mm. Yo, my bad. Was
There.
that me or was that you?
I don't think it was me.
All right, we're good. We're back on.
So I was saying, like, you know, I would make Jeezy show CDs for like $100, and you know, so we established a relationship, and you know, Gangsta Grillz was kind of moving at the time. I had wound up doing a party, and you know, had a bunch of artists come and what have you. So Coach and Jeezy took me to lunch one day and was like, listen, you know, we have this idea, we have this project we want you to work on. You know what I'm saying? Jeezy was kind of explaining to me his vision and what, you know, what he wanted to accomplish. And it sounded good. And, you know, that was the first time I ever got paid to do a tape. They gave me like $1,000, and we did Streets is Watching. It was originally called like G's Up, but that was the name of Scrappy's Click at the time. So even if you go back and listen to the tape, I like say G's Up all over the tape, but we changed the name to Streets is Watching. And that tape came out summer of 2004, like during Birthday Bash of that year. And I remember my homeboy just kind of like pulling up to me like, yo, he told me early on, like, yo, this is your hottest tape. And, you know, at the time, nobody really knew Jeezy. So when they were handing out the CDs, they would be like, yo, this is the new Gangsta Grillz. And little by little, it just, you know, the momentum and the buzz and, you know, it just started to really, it started to pick up and like become something. Next thing you know, Jeezy was like kind of the hottest thing in the streets, you know, in the South, in the Southeast. Around the same time, I did the T.I. Down with the King tape, which was, you know, pretty much the, you know, the fall of Little Flip's career. And that was a big tape. You know what I'm saying? That was probably my biggest tape at the time. So I think like Down with the King was out, and then Streets is Watching came out. So, you know, I had all this momentum, you know, brewing and chatter and people talking. So obviously next, after we did Streets is Watching, you know, Jeezy got his deal at Def Jam. We started working on Trap or Die. Trap or Die came out like January 25th, 2005. So around that time, after Trap or Die is like the first tape that ever had like a release date. You know, before that, tapes would just kind of come out when they came out. But
Yeah.
you know, they had like this whole marketing campaign. You know, posters and DVDs and the party. And I was on tour with T.I. that summer after Trap or Die came out, and I was just like, I couldn't go nowhere in the country and not hear myself or that tape or Gangsta Grillz. So that was definitely like okay, I made it moment for me, you know. And I remember after I did Trap or Die, thinking like, you know, it was so big, and I was just like, damn, what I'm gonna do now? You know, I've always had that kind of instinct where I'm like, damn, what the fuck can I do next? Like, how can I top that? You know, and like while I was on tour with Tip, I wound up, he was on the phone with Lil Wayne while we were on the tour bus. And I was like, yo, you talking to Wayne? Let me holler at him. I got on the phone, we chopped it up, and I was like, yo, let's do something. He was like, bet, let's do it. And I came up with the concept of Dedications. And Dedication came out maybe like a month after Trap or Die. And, you know, so I was just on fire.
So that just happened. Because that's like as Wayne is becoming, you know, he's not Lil Wayne, the biggest rapper in the world. He's starting his ascent. So how did you know? Did you know like, all right, this dude's about to make this run, or what was it? Just hey, I like it. Let's do a tape.
I had no idea. I had no idea. I liked Lil Wayne. Like he, you know, I always at that time it was like the wobbly, drop it like it's hot guy. You know what I'm saying? And I was during those early Gangsta Grill years. I used to like use a couple of his songs off the Squad Up mixtapes. You know, when Gangsta Grills were like a compilation. So you know, I knew he was kind of like in his mixtape bag, or like, you know, he was aware of, you know, just street culture at the time. And then when I got on the phone with him, or when we came up with the concept, yo, I had no idea, like no idea, none. And when he started, you know, I sent him a bunch of records to get on, and you know, this was like when he first created Young Money. And when he sent me the music, and I was listening to it, I was just like, I remember thinking like, yo, this guy is spitting, like this is different. You know what I'm saying? I think the Carter had just came out, you know, and he had a buzz from that. But you know what was special about Dedication too is because, you know, Dedication being a mixtape and, you know, being in that culture, it moved a lot up north and on the East Coast and Canal Street, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that tape is very important to part of his ascension outside of the South, and really getting the accolades and the credit for like being the type of lyricist and the rapper he is. Cause, you know, I feel like I can say, like, you know, up north, like people were listening to probably Dedication more than the first Carter per se. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, a lot of people got a lot of their music from Canal Street, and it spread that way. And Dedication was like hotcakes up there. And it's just like, you know, the whole tape is just so like, you know, it's just one of those moments where it's just like, it's just, it's almost like destiny, or like just meant to be. I mean, when you think about how iconic, first of all, the name Dedication is to the project, and to like
artwork.
to Wayne.
Like, what about the art? Like, who came up with the art? The artwork is so iconic because
it's incredible. Like my man Rob Petrozo, who used to do all my covers, he came up. You know, he was in his bag at the time. He was doing all types of covers, and you know, he came up with the artwork for Dedication, and it's just like, to this day it's still iconic. Like I see people, you know,
still buy it.
They're inspired by it. They, you know, they bite it. They make their own versions of Dedication, and I look back like, wow, it's so crazy. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, the artwork in itself was just like so iconic. Everything about it is iconic. And then, you know, like I started to really kind of like get my formula like totally together, you know, and I would like write scripts out for artists to like do the drops, and you know, just kind of get creative with the mixtape, you know what I'm saying? And even like what I would bring to the table, you know, I think before me, like most DJs that hosted mixtapes kind of just you know, they would do like shout outs to people and, you know, stores and things like that. And I kind of like would almost like give sermons, or just like really play off the music and get creative, you know what I mean? So when I look at it, like, you know, people always talk about the most important tapes or my favorites or the best, like, you know, obviously a tape like Trap or Die is very important to my career and, you know, to the mixtape game. But like I use Dedication 2 as the example of like, to me, it's like the perfect mixtape. You know what I'm saying? Like Wayne was at like an all-time high. You know, I felt like my formula and, you know, just how that tape is put together is just like, you know, it doesn't really get any better than that.
Right, because it was a lot of mixtape DJs at that time, and that's when you really set yourself apart from the pack. It was like, all right, the branding is on point, the artwork is really good, and I think that's when I first noticed you utilizing the internet. Like, was it your idea to start putting those online? Because that, you know, I think that's where you had a leg up, was like these started, you know, you were able to get these online and download them in full.
Yeah, no, that was kind of something that happened organically. And honestly, I didn't even, at the time, I didn't see the benefit of it, nor did I
Really?
like it. Yeah, because you got to think, like I come from a, a school of, you know, that's like as taboo as it is, or it was at the time, to talk about it. You know, obviously in those days, mixtapes were for promotional use only, but that was how we made our money. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I would sell, I would, you know, sell boxes of hundreds of CDs for, you know, on wholesale prices, or, you know, I kind of came up right around a time when there was like mixtape websites where, you know, Mix Unit or
Yep.
Mixtape King, you know what I'm saying? So those were like, you know, the goal at the time was to like be the first the first tape on Mixtape Unit when you went to the site, and what was the very first tape at the top of the, you know, at the top of the list and everything. So, and people would go to those sites to buy mixtapes. So around this time, then you start getting these other websites that start just, you know, offering you free downloads of these mixtapes. And, you know, I remember thinking in those early days, like I remember 05, 06, and like that Piff was out, and they were like the enemy, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, here we are like trying to, you know, put these tapes up to get people to buy them, and that Piff is over here like, you know, offering free downloads, you know what I'm saying? So I wasn't with it, you
So
know
you
what I'm
weren't
saying?
fucking with that at the time. That you were not fucking with
I
that.
wasn't. Nah, hell no. Like what? Like what? You're downloading our tapes for free, but you know, obviously there was a whole, you know, there was a whole culture and a whole bunch of people that, you know, appreciated that and probably got the tapes that way. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't really like. I didn't really. I didn't take heed or understand the value of that probably till years later, like after the raid and stuff like that.
Right, because you had no idea. I mean, there was no way to even quantify how many copies of these are getting downloaded. And like, you don't even know how many you're selling because people are bootlegging those and other people are, I mean, so, but there's probably, you know, hundreds of thousands of these CDs on the street or, you know, people
Sure.
have downloaded.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I was bringing in myself, like, I was bringing in $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a month, like off of what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, Lord knows how many copies. Like, I mean, I'm sure there were between, you know, 250,000 and 500. I mean, definitely about 500,000 like Trapper Dies and dedications through the streets and things like that.
Right. And so, like, business is booming. Like, at this point, like, you can write your own ticket. You're making a lot of money, and everybody's probably calling. Like, when you were doing these projects, were you picking all the beats yourself? So, like, you were sending the package of instrumentals to Wayne, like, all right, rap over these. Is that how you were doing it? Or were the artists sometimes picking what they wanted to rap over?
It was a combination of both. It would be both. I mean, I would definitely like, you know, certain tapes I was more instrumental than others, but a tape like Dedication, I definitely picked out a lot of the production, and you know, like again, like I would write up scripts to kind of like give the tape an outline and things of that. You know, but some tapes in comparison like were more original music, and then there were freestyle, so it just kind of depended on, you know, what the project was. But I was always very heavily involved in a majority of the mixtapes. And you know, after that, like after Trap or Die and Dedication, like you said, like my phone was off the hook. Like I really became a part of the culture in a sense where like it would almost be like, all right, well, when your album is coming out, you gotta go on 106 and Park, you gotta get the cover of Double XL, and you gotta do a DJ Drama Gangsta Grillz. So it was like, you know, I was the conversation in the marketing meetings,
Right.
you know, as far as
how they talk about TikTok now, like how it's like, all right, they're like, all right, we got to have a TikTok video, we got to have an influencer. Like you were a part of the marketing campaign, 100%. So were labels like fucking with you then, or were they like at first were they on your ass and like, no, we got to shut this down, sending you cease and desist, or did they love you?
No, they loved me. They always loved me. You know, labels was paying me 20 grand, you know, to do a project. Like the money started rolling in on that side. Like, you know, I was getting calls like left and right. You know what I'm saying? I always had a good relationship with the labels, you know, for the most part. I mean, you know, obviously being a DJ, and then, you know, from the mixtape side, and then just kind of my relationships with various people. So, you know, I never looked at it we were doing anything wrong, or someone didn't understand or appreciate what, you know, we were bringing to the table. But, you know, around the same time, we have to realize like the record industry was definitely in a decline. You know, CD sales were down. You know, ringtones became a thing, as well as, you know, besides my mixtapes that were like sanctioned, you know, there's 500 other mixtape DJs that are like getting leaked music and, you know, not doing tapes they're doing unauthorized projects that, are kind of getting under the artists and label skin. And, it started to really become a burden. And, I think the record label started to look at like, okay, this is kind of affecting our business.
Right. And so then like things started changing, but I think one of the mixtapes that now everybody looks back on and talks about that, I don't know if it was as big at the time, but now everybody's like, yo, what the hell? Like, how did you get a Pharrell mixtape? How did Pharrell get a Gangsta Grillz?
Well, first of all, I was a huge fan of P's, like, since he pretty much broke onto the scene. I met him in like 03, 04, when he was working with Tip. Tip was like kind of on house arrest, and he was working out of his studio crib. I don't remember where it was in Atlanta, but Pharrell was there, and we that was how we originally met. And he was kind of aware of who I was and what I was doing, and we kind of just stayed in contact. And I got a phone call from him one day, like, yo, I want to do a tape. And I was like, what? Like, he's like, he's that guy at the time, and he just kind of was like, he was kind of explaining how he wanted to do different shit, and, just a little, he was putting his album out, but he wanted this to be like the prequel to his album. And, a lot of the production on there, a lot of those beats on that tape, he actually, he definitely picked out. He was very influential in there. And it was just like, it was an exciting moment, especially for me because, Gangsta Grillz had been such a brand that was synonymous with the South and like street rap and, trap music at the time. And, when I did a project with Pharrell, a couple people even like kind of questioned like a Pharrell Gangsta Grillz, how does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? Because the brand at the time was so connected to the streets. And,
Right.
and I wanted to be able to show like, listen, my brand can go this way, it can go that way, it can go here, it can go everywhere, and watch what we do. And, that tape was kind of like, a hipster's Bible in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? I still have kids, or not kids anymore, but, people
They're adults now.
within the business, and then, without the business, that would come to me like, yo, that tape was like, it changed my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, we lived by that tape, you know what I'm saying? Because it was kind of it was a mesh, you know what I'm saying? It was Gangsta Grillz from the streets, and then there was Pharrell, who's like, the hipster god in a sense, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I love that.
He was rapping, and he was rapping on there. Like, he's really spitting on there.
Definitely, he's really spitting on there.
And like to hear him over those beats, like, he's rapping on RZA beats, like, So did you pick those, or did he pick those to rap?
He picked a lot of those.
Yeah, so he's rapping on Trap or Die beats. He's rapping on. I mean, it was really dope, and I feel like that's one of those that's like people still talk about it all the time on social media. Like, that's one of those ones that has carried over. I mean, you've done 150 some or 200 of these CDs, so it's like hard to keep track of them all.
Right, for sure.
And one, when I was doing my research for this, I had to look up. Yo, you did a Gangsta Grillz with Ron Artest?
I did. I did too with Ron Artest.
What was it? What was it like doing the Gangsta Grillz with Ron Artest?
It was cool. I mean, sports and hip hop always have that correlation. So he called me, and he was working with some artists out of Queens at the time, and he was trying to get into the music business. So he reached out to do a project. So I was a fan, and you know what I mean. It's Ron, like I was hyped. You know what I mean. And I've actually done a numerous projects with like athletes through the years. So, but that was definitely one of the highlights.
Yeah, that was crazy. But as far as like doing another one with Pharrell, do you think you could ever get in with him to do another one, or is that like a once in a lifetime type of thing?
I'm with it. I mean, obviously the game has changed. Like the mixtape game has changed, and the space that Pharrell is in is a little different. But you know, when we still talk about it. I mean, to this day, we still talk about it. But will he ever do another one? Who knows? You know, if he wants to, I'm here for it. But you know, I mean, I will say without giving any, I can't really give out too much information, but I did just do a project with an artist that I could say is very highly inspired by the Pharrell Gangsta Grillz, and I feel like it can be for this generation what that tape was for that generation.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And I like how you're bringing it back. You did one with Benny. Like the Benny one makes sense, right? So like I love the Curveball Gangsta Grillz.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm excited to whatever, you know, to see whatever that's going to be.
Yeah, you'll fuck with this one.
Okay, good. What about a Dedication 7? You think we'll ever get one of those?
Yeah, that'll definitely happen. He's never stopping.
You got to keep that going on forever.
Yeah, he just did a what is it? The new Sorry for the Wait, or the new Sorry for the Wait is on its way. So I actually kind of helped him out a little bit with that, just you know, provide him with some instrumentals. But we'll get another dedication for sure. I'm not worried about that.
Okay. So one of the ones that number one that people talk about in Chicago probably more than any of them. You've done a lot of Chicago tapes. You know, you've done them with LEP Bogus Boys, the Chicago Rilla with Bump J. That was really big in the streets of Chicago, you know. But the Jeremih late nights, the first late nights, you know, I don't know if that's technically a Gangsta Grillz, but man, that's like his best album to me, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite tapes I've ever done. I met Jeremih through a mutual friend of ours, and we just started chopping it up, busting it up. And I told him love to do a record with him, so I sent him some beats. I had some T-minus beats at the time, and he sent me back the hook for My Moment, which, you know, at the time wound up being one of my biggest records, you know, right around when Meek and Chains were really kind of bubbling and doing their debut albums. I got them both on that song and everything. And that was actually my first gold single, My Moment. So, you know, salute to Jeremih for that.
I've seen the plaque. He's got the plaque up at his crib in LA. I've seen it.
Yeah? That's fine. That's what's up. So, you know, around that time we were vibing and working a lot, and you know, it came to me to do late nights, and you know, this is still in a time when like R&B mixtapes are still kind of new in a sense, you know, and because of what people know me for, or you know, being boisterous or loud, or you know, however on the tapes, you know, when a project like that comes along, you know, I like it because I can kind of showcase my variety, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, obviously I changed my tone on that tape a little bit, and you know, I brought it down, and you know, the music is just like phenomenal, you know, from beginning to end. Like that's one of those tapes that I used to like. Anytime I would have company, like I would go straight to late night. You know what I'm saying? And it's a classic. I mean, point blank, period. Like there's a reason why he named his, you know, album, you know, Late Nights after that tape, because that tape was so strong, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, it was hit records on there, you know, Shot the Ferris, you know, he had his iconic, his Chicago nigga tag on the tape. And, you know, it's just really a thorough project, you know what I'm saying? Definitely one of my favorite, like, you know, not only my favorite R&B tapes that I've done, but just like one of my favorites that I've ever done.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the best. I mean, I can't think of another R&B mixtape that's even close to that. Yeah. And like people rock.
Only one close I would say.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is maybe Chris Brown, In My Zone, but Jeremih Late Nights is definitely the top of my list.
Yeah, and like people talk about that like it's an album. People still want that to come out as an album. Would you ever have like plans to put that out as an official project on the DSPs, or is that?
Yeah, I've been talking to the DSPs and working on some things about releasing Gangsta Grillz as a whole, you know, as a collection on the DSPs, and really like take you know, 5 to 10 of the the most popular projects and launch them on the DSP. So we've been working on that for some time. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but there's a lot of I's to dot, a lot of T's to cross, because of clearances and just publishing and royalty on a lot of those records. But it's definitely a goal of mine to see a lot of those come out on the DSPs, because that's like a whole, like you said, that's like a whole moment in time of music that could potentially get lost in a sense, you know what I'm saying, or it's not as accessible or as available, and it's a very important important part of hip hop history and culture in a sense. So I definitely want to see all that stuff being able to be appreciated by a whole generation that may have missed it, as well as those who find nostalgia in it, and who came up with it, and be available for everybody.
Right. And every time I post that, people are like, yo, why do you care? You could just go to Dat Piff. You can go to Live Mixtapes. It's there for free. You can download it. Who doesn't have it? But it's that's not the point. You just explained what the point is. It's for future generations, because who knows how long those sites are going to be there. Those sites could be over with tomorrow. And I guess a streaming DSP could be over with tomorrow too. But the industry has bet on that to win. So that's where it's going to live. And it needs to live there forever, because these are very important projects that have bridged, they really have bridged the gap between the old era and where we are now.
Absolutely.
But that said, do you have any idea what Gangsta Grillz project was downloaded the most? Which one was the biggest one that either sold the most or downloaded the most?
According to Dat Piff, Dream Chasers 2.
Right. I remember that crashed.
Yeah, for them, Dream Chasers 2 is the most downloaded. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, so many of them have been so heralded at times. I mean, Dedication 3 was big, Fab, There's No Competition. There's been so many at different times that have when they were about to drop, about to come out, just really had their moments. So yeah, I don't know.
Was there ever a Gangsta Grillz that was supposed to happen that didn't happen, that you're still upset about?
I wouldn't want to say I'm upset about any of them, but definitely a bunch of them. Shit, where you want to start? So Drake and Gucci almost did a Gangsta Grillz together. That would have been phenomenal.
Crazy, because they had a bunch of records early on together.
Those were for the tape. Wow. Yeah, those were all for the tape. I remember we all got on the phone and chopped it up and discussed putting it together and everything. And Drake was super excited. I think WAP had just got out of jail, so yeah, they did 3 records together early on. Those records were all for the project. Last Days at Rodeo. Is that how you say it? Mm-hmm. Trevor Scott. I was supposed to be Gangsta Grillz. He called me. He was like, "Yo, I want to do a tape," and then he wound up telling me Kanye talked him out of making it into Gangsta Grillz. It should be his album. So, which I'm not mad at.
Yeah, you can't be mad at that, really, I guess.
Uzi's Love Is Rage. The first one was supposed to be Gangsta Grillz. What other tapes? Outkast was supposed to do one.
What?
Yeah, they were supposed to do one before Ottawa came out.
Wow.
That's how I wound up getting the artist storytelling record, because they called me and were like, listen, I know we're supposed to do a tape, but we don't really have time to do it. So because we did agree to do it, how about we give you a record for your album? And I was like, hell, motherfucking yeah,
So that's how you got that record. That wasn't just pieced together. That was an official Outkast record.
Oh, 100%, yeah. But originally, we were going to do a whole project together.
Damn. So unfortunately, nothing got recorded for that.
Nah.
Yeah, nope. That would have been crazy.
I'm trying to think. Anything else? I feel like there's another album that came out that was big, that was supposed to be Gangsta Grillz, but yeah, those in itself, Oh, I mean, people kind of know this story obviously because it got caught up in the Meek Drake debacle, but we did have some light initial conversations about what became, if you're reading this, it's too late. We definitely had some light conversations about that being a Drake drama collaboration, Gangsta Grillz at the time. But because of the massive artist that Drake is and how much goes into the business of Drake, it wasn't able to conceptualize into a project. But
Yeah, and like as time moved on, like labels started monetizing like every bit of music that came out. So like they
yeah,
kind of
and
did
that's
away
kind of
with
where it
that model.
started. For sure, and that's kind of where it started. I mean, that was kind of the model, initially that took it into that direction was if you're reading this is too late. You know what I'm saying? So, but like before that, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first quote unquote mixtape that was available on streaming platforms. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I mean, as much as it was original music, it was. He put it out as a surprise album mixtape, and before that, that Piff and Live mixtapes were cutting major checks to myself and to artists to drop tapes on their platforms, you know what I'm saying? And then once Drake did that, as he's done multiple times, and kind of like changed the direction, like all mixtapes pretty much went to Apple and Spotify, and they found a new home on the streaming sites.
Right. So do you still get calls from artists to do them? Do people still like, man, we should resurrect the series. We should bring it back. We should do a Gangsta Grillz.
All the time, all the
So
time. So
what's the plan?
it's very humbling, and it's it's um it's a compliment to me that it still matters, or artists still get excited for it, and things like that.
Yeah. So like,
I mean,
what are you planning for the legacy
rest in
going
peace,
forward? Like,
rest in peace, Juice. Like Juice wanted to do a tape with me.
Juice World?
Yeah.
Wow, that would have been crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
What were you saying? What did you say?
no, I just wanted to know, like, what was your plan for what's your plan for the legacy of Gangsta Grillz, like in the future?
I mean, definitely to get them on the streaming platforms. Um, from what I've already done with it, and then yeah, as far as the future holds, who knows where it's gonna go? You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna keep doing. If artists still want to do them, I'm gonna keep rocking out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously, I've gone on to other things, with the label Generation Now, and with various things that I've done in my career. But Gangsta Grillz is always going to be monumental and special to myself and to the culture. So, if it makes sense, going forward, obviously, like something like, working with Benny or Wyeth and Lucci, or, the tape that I can't tell you about that, will be out soon. Like, if it makes sense, I'm going to do it.
Right, right. Okay. Well, we're looking forward to whatever's coming next. Um, is there anything that, like, I know you when the raid happened, like that took a big toll on you, and just the mixtape world in general. That was kind of like,
Yeah.
that shook the mixtape world to its core. Did you lose anything during that raid that like never came out? That just like, did you have any kind of crazy freestyles or tapes like in a hard drive that got taken that you were never able to get back?
They actually took my hard drives of my first album that I was working on, my major label debut. I had signed to Atlantic at the time.
Right.
They took our hard drives of everything that we had produced for that album. I did eventually get them back. Some of the drives were like were um, were like fucked up, from the raid, but so I had to recreate some of the music. But I would say again, and also like the Outkast record that I did, happened after the raid. I mean, like the whole concept of the record with Marsha's hook and her saying, nothing's gonna stop us, they can't stop us. Like all that came from what happened at the raid, and me telling her like, listen, man, like I want to do a song where I know they can't stop me. Like I'm not done. You know what I'm saying? And even though Outkast agreed to do the record with me, I had been sending 3 stacks like beats from every major producer in the game at the time, like everybody, and nothing was kind of sticking with them. And Cannon made the beat for Art of Storytelling 4, and I sent it to him with that hook, and he was like, "Yo, I'll call you tomorrow." And the next thing you know, in 24 hours, you know, he sent me his iconic verse. So I definitely can say I gained something from that. You know, I didn't really lose any mixtapes or anything like that, and you know, they took like they definitely took 6 figures from me that they never gave back, but you know, I made it back tenfold, so it was all worth it.
You came back stronger.
For sure. For
Okay.
sure.
Well, thank you for sitting down and giving us a history lesson on that, man. There's some really good stuff.
Absolutely, bro. No, for sure. I appreciate it. I love your site. I love your Twitter feed, man. You know what I'm saying? Keep going, you know.
No doubt. I appreciate the support, man. Much love.
Absolutely.
Hold on.